here for 24 years. Last year, at the same place, we are holding the first documentary exhibition. Now, right now, we are holding up the secondary documentary exhibition. Happiness Project is a very famous name. You might be one of the donators for the charity project. In China, we are receiving organizations' care and support. Some of the government agencies are giving us donations as well. Right here in the middle of the display, here is a logo. This is a big logo made up by one loop. It's like a pair of hands. The pair of hands are echoing the logo of the Happiness Project. They're almost the same at each of the nodes. You could have a closer look at the assistance, the aids, and the milestones for the poor mothers. Right here on the right-hand side, here comes the theme for this exhibition. The name is "We are going to discover the power of me, and we're going to perceive the greatness of love." Me, or I, has two dimensions of meanings. Firstly, it means the poor mothers. If you want to get out of the poverty, you are going to take the initiative to pull up yourself, to make up efforts to do something significantly. Secondly, it means you, me, ourselves, all the social workers, all those people with a loving heart. By putting up our efforts together, we're going to change the world. We're going to make a difference. For this time, the secondary documentary exhibition contains 2 floors of art crafts. At the first floor, it contains some of the photos. We're going to show you the contraction before and after the mothers are receiving the assistance. At the second floor, here comes the history of the 24th glory. All these photos, all these documentary art crafts are provided by one person. He is a professor from the School of Journalism and Communication from Tianjin University. Now we are going to say hello to him. Hello, Professor Yu. Good morning. My name is Yu Chuanxin. Professor Yu, it's my great honor to see you. This is the first time for us to meet up with each other. I've read your resume. I do admire you a lot. It's been 18 years for Professor Yu to provide voluntary assistance, to provide photos for more than 1,300 mothers. It's been a consecutive effort for more than 80 years without any stop. And you're also supervising students to cover the poor counties and villages at the remote areas in west part of China. For the last 18 years, you have been covered more than 99 counties and 300 or so villages. Those are the poorest places in China, worth of our attention. Professor Yu is a senior expert, and you are going down to the grassroots to help us to understand the daily lives of the citizens and how could they make a difference to their life. Now I'm going to accompany you to see around all the photos when we are waiting to listen to your interpretation. Right here along the corridor, I want to cut in a few words. Here are some of the partners with us, such as our network, our GCTV. Here comes the highlighted part, the whiteboard, with the quotations from the donators. And Professor Yu is also showing you your words. They are physically poor, but they are mentally rich. If you are creating conditions for them, they're going to take the initiative to make a difference. That's something I do like. So my question for you is, on what kind of conditions you are showing us? They're saying, starting from 2001, I started the project in 2015. I authored a book. That was a book after 15 years of achievements by me. I put a few lines of words in my book. The poor mothers are physically poor, but they are mentally rich because of a simple act. Physically poor is not that a tragedy, but we are going to help those poor mothers to establish their philosophies and new mindset. In western part of China, for some geographical reasons or some transportation reasons, they are not getting enough resources. But after we are getting funds and assistance and cash to them, we are going to lift them up out of the poverty. I've been working with them for more than 50 years. In 2015, I successfully saw the difference, the transformation mentally. That is really inspiring. Professor Yu, back in 2015, authored a book in the name of Ordinary Mothers. That book was a collection of the photos of the poor mothers. Professor Yu is also a great photographer whose art crafts has been collected by some of the foreign organizations. And here's another quotation from one of the donators, Yuan Shangguo. The words is as follows: mothers are like the sunlight. When someone's life is in the dark, the mothers will comfort you and give you strength. And you know her. Yes, I know her. She's a very interesting nanny. She's a retired teacher. Back in 2000, I talked to her after she watched my exhibition and photos. She contacted me through the organization, the committee organization. In the beginning, she did not believe. Back in those years, she did not have the trust with most of the organizations. So every year and every month, she took up 100 RMB yuan and gave it to me. She never stopped her assistance. It's been over 10 years. We did not meet with each other for any time. We are talking to each other through the phone, and we have long-term contact. So you are like co-workers. Madam Yuan is one of the greatest donators, and I know them a lot. In 2001, after my project was initiated through the report of the media, I have received a lot of mails, letters, and forms, numerous. So many of those loving donators are more like establishing a hotline for them. 10 years ago, for each of the week, I could receive dozens of forms per week. Back in 2000 or so, the reports were really frequent. The foundations, the leadership, the central governments were very much active in promoting the efforts in elevating in poverty. So I'm more like a contact person. Not only the domestic donators, but also the foreign donators were keeping contact with me, and I could receive US dollars as well. So you are like an ambassador of the Happiness Project. Right here, we're also seeing one of the volunteer Yang, who are saying, mother is the heart of the family. Helping mothers is also like in helping the families. I learned a lot and benefited from this Happiness Project. Any words about Yang, the voluntary worker? He's one of my students in the Tianjin Normal University. He came to university in 2009 after graduation. He was enrolled by the graduate school, and after graduation, Yang became one of the doctors. Still, Yang was working with the Chinese charity organization, and the Jingri Toutiao to initiate organization for treating the major diseases, especially leukemia. Yang is employed by the hospital in Tianjin, and Yang has resources to help those patients and families who are attracting the leukemia. Yang was also echoing his efforts on the website to get the group funding online. The project was also initiated by the Jingri Toutiao. For each week, Yang called me and talked to me. All the photos were shown to me. Yang expressed his idea to get his group involved in the Happiness Project. He also wanted to work with me to use photos and documentary art crafts to promote the Poverty Alleviation Project. He's really one of the greatest students I have already trained. I want to express my sincere thanks to Professor Yu and his students for your kind words and your kind deeds. You are not only helping the mothers in the poverty, you're also encouraging and inspiring your students to get involved in. That is how we are going to scale up the project in the long term, in the foreseeable future. Now let's move on to see the main content of the art exhibition. Right here, we are entering a new part. Today, we are choosing one of the key figures in the name of Qin Chunju, who came from Chongqing, a small village back in Chongqing. My question for Professor Yu, you are giving us 1,300 photos, and you are choosing one mom to be one of key figure. What is the reason behind? At the secondary document exhibition, we are making some differences. We are choosing one representative mother. In the beginning, and we are showing you the differences before and after she was receiving the assistance. Through her, we could understand and see the strength and power behind them. Through her own efforts, the transformation was huge. More importantly, we want to gain the strength, the greatness of the motherly love. That is the reason we are choosing her as the key figure for the exhibition for this time. She never gives up. That is something I do admire her. Here comes some CV for her. Back in 2001, she was 38 with 2 daughters. The family was in misery. Back in 1993, the mother realized her father left him with no news back. The family owned only one old house. The daughters and the mothers were left behind. Please follow me. Here come some photos of Qin. Would you mind to give us some stories behind the photos? Mother Qin was acquainted with me in 2001 at the International Children's Day. We completed our interview with a village. It was located in the Daba Mountain in Chongqing. The trees were huge and booming. Her house was hidden behind the trees without any modern street or avenue. Back in 2001, we finished our interview and back in the downtown area. The village head was meeting with us and expressed his thanks. We exchanged notes, and he asked us a question. Have you interviewed a mother in the name of Qin? No, we said no. It was further explained. The mother was filled up with stories, especially sad stories. I made up a decision immediately. That was at the late afternoon. We decided to go back to her house to get more words out of her. There was no modernized roads or streets, only the sandy and stony lane. No car could get in her house. There was around 200 and 300 stone and sandy roads before we reached her. It was late afternoon. On the left-hand side of the street, I saw the mother and 2 daughters were planting the seeds on the soil. We explained to her our purpose of the trip, and she introduced us to her house. Her husband, back in 2003, loved the mother and the daughters. The reason was very obvious. The family was too poor to support the whole family. Her husband wanted to do something differently. In the beginning, the mother did not tell us the truth. She gave us the excuse of forgiving her husband. Gradually, we realized that her husband was just leaving them for a bad life. The house was built up by the sand and soil. On one special year, after the storming and the mudslide, one of the rooms was crashed. The two daughters were adopted by one of her relatives. She herself was pulling up a plastic bag and slept there for a week. At each of the nights, the mother could not sleep very well. In the huge mountains, the village head told us the mother cried every night after the daughters were taken away. The tales were almost crashing and tearing the heart apart. The mother was very vulnerable. She began to feed up an ox and a cow for the villagers with agreement. It was free of charge. However, the calf, half of the calves of the ox and the cow should be given to Qin. We've been together for 2 days. At the evening of the second evening, we decided to make agreement to her. We will meet you up again in the 6 o'clock in the morning. This is another morning. After the interview, I got to know something about her. She told everything about herself, about her family. Everything within his family was carried on by herself alone. Her two daughters were too small to do the chores and to all the agriculture work. We could imagine how hard life was without any help. However, I know how hard and how hardcore a mother she was. She almost cried. She did not cry anymore, for the exception that when she talked about her mother, her daughters, she would cry. The only dream of her is to send their two daughters to the schools and to receive better education, to get out of those poor areas, for getting better life for her daughters. She could endure everything to build up a house for others. She would spend no efforts to realize the dream, to get up the cash for her two daughters. Back in 2001, it was not a small sum for her to give the two daughters the opportunity to go to school. I remember that back in 2001, it was less than 10 RMB for the daughters to go to elementary school. If the daughters were enrolled by the middle school, it was around 600 RMB per year. It was not easy for her. Another question. Back in 2001, she was 38, but we could watch closely to her face, the lines, the wrinkles, and the eye bags, and all the lines on her hands. All those lines could help us to understand how hard her life was. She was like a 48-year-old woman instead of a 38-year-old woman. Let's move on. Their houses were destroyed. The message was when going to the village, going to the town, and going to the city, the county leadership decided to earmark 3,000 RMB yuan to Madam Qin to help her to procure the woods, the tills, and some of the building materials. 3,000 RMB yuan was good enough to build up a decent room. However, she decided to build up a bigger house instead of a single room. On a daily basis, she went to the foot of the mountain, alongside which there was a small river. Every day, she took up and scraped the good sand, and she carried all those sand to the new house. All those are the sand with wet, the wet sand with water and moisture out there. It was in June. Very wetty, all the mountains ups and downs. The slope is around 16 degrees. It's around 100 kilograms along this bag, and I tried whether I could make it happen. Yes, back then I was 39, I could carry it on. However, I found it pretty hard for me to move on and carry on along so long a track. I know that she made it. It was so heavy for her, but she did not give it up. She just wanted to make a decent house, not only for her, but only for the family. The two daughters also joined her. The two daughters helped her to pick up and scrape the sand. And I asked her to show me the appearance of the bag, because it was a journey for 3 months. It was not like a bag of a decent lady. The skin was almost broken, was very much coarse. So you have the first experience of the mother, and you know how hard the life was. Yes, let's move on. Another photo. She told me. I lied on my back and believed if there was another mudslide, I would rather died, because if I died, everything was okay. I'm not going to carry all those responsibilities on my shoulder anymore. The good news is the government is helping her to get out of the poverty. Another photo for her at the agriculture paddy. She lived on maize and potato instead of the rice. This photo was showing us how she picked up potatoes. Yes, she wrote a smile. It was in 2000. They are under malnutrition because they do not have the meat or fresh. Back in 2001, I was in the western part of China. I toured a lot of the remote and poor villages and counties back in 2001. The potatoes, the maize, and the corn were the staple food. Chongqing offers rich soil and land, and they could well be fed. I went to Guizhou, Qinghai, Daliang mountain of Sichuan. Most of the families could not well be fed. She has 2 daughters. The 3 ladies could feed themselves, but they do not have any sources of making money. What she could do is to help in the neighbors and others to get some cash. Are they planting the wheat or rice? Sure. She was planting the rice and getting some cash. It is said that potato is a staple food for the villagers along the Daba mountain. Back then, they are not raising up the goats, pigs, or any ox or cows. At 5 a.m. each morning, she was up to feed the cows and the ox. and the joints and ankles was disformed. The agreement was very simple. Half of the calves were given to her, as well as the cow dung. The post was also given to her. It's like a very simple form of trade. 5 a.m. in the morning, we went to her house. We saw how she was planting the agricultural paddy and how she feeding up the cow. One day, I went to her house, 5 a.m. She was almost up and feeding up the cows. Qing was a very diligent mother. Yes, I have a strong feeling that the Chinese mothers are very much diligent. She did it every day, without any exception, without any day missed. Here comes a photo after the houses were crashed. She is screening the sand, and I saw the tools so huge, so heavy. Yes, this is a very small river alongside the houses. Every day, she picked up and swam the sands and moved it up. On a daily basis, she did it for a couple of times. If she has a husband, everything will become much easier, because humans need to get support. It was a small two-storied house. However, on the secondary floor, there's no roof. Normally, it's like a normal platform. She used the platform to treat all those, the corn, the potato. Because of the cash restraints, what she could do is to build up a very simplified two-story house. I talked to the mother at a very special spring festival. The kids need to get the tutor fees. The mother carried a basket of the local vegetable to the county to get a good price in the morning. She toured along the village lanes, and she get kicked off. She tipped off. Still, she stood up, and she wanted to move on to get all those tutor fee back. Two of the tasks and purposes of her life is to support her daughters and to get the tutor fee for her daughters. I asked her what is her biggest dream. Replied, my biggest dream is to get my own cow. A cow will produce calves, and the calves could be sold to support my daughters to go to the school. That was a very simple dream for her. Let's move on to hear more stories of her. It was a new photo, much better than the previous one. I followed her and interviewed her for 2 consecutive days. Over the 2 days, that was the only photo of her with a big smile, with a really dearly smile. The 2 daughters were good students, were top students at this school. The 2 daughters are 1 year old in a gap. They are in the same classroom. The 2 daughters, as told by the mother, were top students. They could go to very good middle school. The teacher also encouraged the mother to support them to go to the school. When I interviewed the 2 daughters, they showed me the scores, the results of the examination, very much good. That was also the biggest dream of the mother. She wants to support the 2 daughters to go outside of the mountains. The mother was illiterate, but she knew pretty well, if you want to change yourself, change your life, you are going to get knowledge and change your destination. That was the only way to go. Another photo, I like it pretty much because the light was very much good before I left her at 10 p.m. in the evening. At 9 o'clock in the evening, most of the citizens and villagers were asleep. However, Qing was up 5 a.m. and she was asleep at 12 o'clock in the evening because she took up all those time to make up the shoes for her daughters. She made it by herself, handmade it. She was very intelligent and diligent. The daughters were asleep, she was still up. The houses were not completed. It was half completed. The three of them were moving in before the completion of the house. It was like a prefabricated house with the net. We could have a look at this. The walls not completed. For the walls and for the bricks, who did that for you? The villagers will come up. Normally, Qing will help the villagers to do some small work, like moving up the sands or making up the cement. How old were the two daughters? More than 10, approaching the age of being enrolled by the middle school. One in the name of Changqing, another is Changwing. Changqing and Changwing were the name of the two daughters. Qing, the mother, went to the elementary school before, but she has a firm belief the two daughters has to be enrolled by the school, even though by loans. And she made a promise, if you could be enrolled by college and university, I would do everything to help you, to support you, to offer you anything you want. 3 more photos to go. The new houses were in the middle of the mountain, while the old houses were on the top of the mountains. And she raised a pig for the purpose of educating her two daughters, with her purpose of giving an opportunity for the daughters. One pig could be sold at hundreds of RMB yuan. That was good enough for her daughters to have opportunities to be enrolled by a school. In the middle school, it was around 600 RMB yuan back then, and she's going to pay more to accommodate and feed up her two daughters. Qing was taking everything she could do to support her two daughters. The sand work is huge. I could not make it. It was a very interesting photo. I like it. I went to her house. After her completing the task of feeding up the cow, she came back and she told me she has to planting all the seed on the rice paddy. The two daughters asked money from the mother. I remember it was around 0.2 or 0.5 RMB yuan for the reason of celebrating the International Children's Day at school. I followed the mother to see how she planting the white seeds on the paddy, and I joined her to do the agriculture work. But I still kept a distance between us. I saw the two daughters running to the mother after the school was dismissed. The two daughters took up a candy, a snack, to the mother. The two daughters was rushing in front of the mother. I took up the camera. I was using the film back then. I took up the camera and I make the distance and focus. I have a strong sense of prediction. I know something eventful will be happening. The second daughter, small daughter, was delivering the candy to the mother, who was very much excited. I asked a question to the daughters. What did you give to your mom? We took 0.5 RMB yuan to celebrate the National Children's Day, and the school was buying us a lot of snacks. They were not quality snacks, but the teacher once gave it to us. We want to save it to our mother, because our mother was the only person who was supporting us while our father was leaving us 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago. The two daughters have a lot of compassion towards her mother. They know how hard the life was for her mother. All of a sudden, the mother felt a strong sense of happiness because the two daughters know how to treasure the mother's efforts. They almost say in the mother with a bittersweet heart was having a strong flow of the sweetness, because this kind of a strong relationship could melt away all those hardships of their life. Still, we could recognize and identify the hardship of life. Let's move on to see more. I want to cut in a few words by introducing to you a letter. It was done by Madam Yu Bing, the daughter of Professor Yu. The madam was mailing to the daughter of Madam Qin. It was very much moving to me. It was read as follows. Hello, Changqing. My name is Yu Bing. I'm Professor Yu's daughter. I'm 8 years old. On behalf of my family, I want to say hello to you. After reading out your letter, I was very much moved and touched. Your tuition fee was almost 600 RMB yuan, but my cost is higher, much higher. Your story has been told by my father. I did not know you in person, but I could imagine the hardship of your life. You have to get confidence. You have to be enrolled by a good school. I hope that you are going to be a good person in the future. I want to use my money and my red pocket, and I want to give it to you. I want to share it with you. Hopefully, you are going to address all the problems. You are going to become the top student, and you could repay to your mothers. At weekends, please help your mother to finish some of the chores. If you have opportunities to come to Tianjin, I want to show you all the skyscrapers. I will treat you with my warm heart. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing from you. Yu Bing is your daughter. You are telling her a lot of stories of the families. Yes. In July, I went back to Tianjin. Back to that year, I came back to my house 4 times per year. Changqing, the daughter, wrote a letter to me and shared with me the good news. 2 of the daughters were enrolled by the middle school, and I want to give them support. And Changqing kneeled down to me and expressed what she is feeling now. I told my wife the stories. My daughter went back to her house and took up all those red pockets. She wants to share the red pocket with all those daughters. I was very much touched as well back then. In the first year, my daughter gave them the 600 RMB yuan. At the second year, I took up those opportunities. The two daughters were enrolled by the middle school. The two daughters sent the letter to the newspaper agency. One of the editors decided to share the burden with me. Each year, so we're going to share the 1,200 RMB per year. It was also explained here. Wang Qinggang, one of the editors of Professor Yu, so Yu was supporting Changqing, and one was supporting Chang Yun. The two daughters successfully received the 1,200 RMB yuan per each year. Another photo, it was at the old house. She was cooking. The new house was not completed. That was how the old mother was cooking through the fire, through the oven. She told me, after the question was asked by me, "You are sleeping too less, you are up for too long time." She shrugged her shoulder and explained, "I have no choice to go. I have to spend all the time to support my daughters." And the daughters knelt down to me in front of me. After I came back to Tianjin, I began to donate to her. And the daughters called me daddy as well. And the daughters do not have the phones, they are using the letters. Back in 1950s and 60s, many of the families were using that. However, in 2001, some of the remote and poor families in the western part of China were still relying on the traditional way of cooking. Take care, please. There are stairs. Here comes a house prior to completion. Right here, those are the warehouses for keeping up the pigs and cows. And here, on the second floor, there's some living rooms. And right here on the left-hand side, there's a kitchen. And on the roof, here comes a platform to treating all those grains. 3,000 yuan is good for this house. Very simple to accommodate the three ladies. In 2001, I came back to the Tianjin. The family received another 2,000 yuan as donation. An official in the name of Zhang Hao in Hubei province joined the group to donate to the family. Zhang Hao was still contacting me now. However, Zhang Hao had a very busy life. Zhang told me Miss Qin changed her life day by day. In 2001, Zhang gave her 4,000 RMB yuan to procure 2 cows. The 2 cows were still raised up by Qin for each 1 year. The cow could produce 1 calf. The calf could be sold to receive cash. Under such conditions, the mother was receiving the float, was receiving the seed fund as a first step to change her life. It was also echoing the theme of our organization. We're giving you the small amounts to support you to find the source of income, to improve your living standards step by step. In 2006, I went back to Miss Qin. The house was very much in good functioning. In the beginning, The old house was built up by the soil and sand, but now the new house was built up by the brick and the sand. The neighbors were coming up as well in 2006 when I came to interview back to Qin. Now let's move on. All those are the colored photos. Prior to the poverty alleviation, I would give you the black and white photo, but now I want to do it in color. And I saw that the mother was putting on some weight as well. Sure, she could sleep well and ate well, so she put up on some weight. In 2004, another very special event occurred. Her husband was coming back. Her husband was trying to get some job at the Shanxi, Henan, and other provinces. On one accident, her husband's left hand was broken. For all those cash and money was for the disease treatment. Her husband was also very much unfortunate to meet a legal employer. So all those cash money was going for treating the hand. Well, Qin, after years of raising up the cows, Qin is transforming her life. Well, the husband is coming back at that very special event. Her husband was wanting to do something for her. Her husband was also helping Qin to build up another new house. However, unfortunately, the husband was also getting her leg broken after one accident. And Chang Qin, one of the daughters, quitted the schooling to also get some cash. The problem is that Changqing was not good for the climate and atmosphere of Tianjin because Chongqing is in the wetty Chongqing. She made a decision. She decided to go to Shenzhen. Another event was also very interesting. CCTV was also showing an event in Shenzhen anchored by Dongqing. At the Shenzhen event of Dongqing, the two daughters also joined on the stage. The two daughters were taking up the jobs at Shenzhen. The two daughters was also coming to the stage at Shenzhen, even though it was a very rainy day. The two daughters were coming to the live show. The two daughters were sharing with all the audiences the family stories. All the audiences were beginning to donate to them with a total money of over 20,000 RMB yuan in RMB yuan and 15 Hong Kong dollars. For taking all this money, they went back to home and to treat her father. The 20 or so thousand RMB yuan was treating her father. If her father was not meeting up the problem, the physical problem, the family was at a very good track. They are having 6 cows and 2 pigs. After so many years, Qin was keeping up and raising 2 pigs. Let's move on to find more stories of Qin. That was a very good thing. The smile was very sweet and very natural, and she's also have a new machine. She has a strong belief. Physically, she's been improving day by day, and mentally, she's never been given in. I'm very much afraid of those persons who are relying on others to get anything from others. But Qing is different. She is mentally independent. The neighbors would come to her house to chat with her, to talk to her, to become friends. A new relationship was formed. The mental health is also very much important. She's getting confidence, and the confidence could impact others. Back in 2006, during my interview back, I was also asking a question. After years of help, what do you have to say to us? She wanted to express thanks to all those helping hands, and she wants to stand up on her own feet and use her own hands to alleviate herself out of poverty. She also wants to live a relatively rich life. You could feel the strong strength and strong power out of her. If she felt she could not repay to all those kind heart of all those loving hands. She has such dignity. She has a strong sense of self-respect. In 2018, I went back to her. I could find the resilience from her. In 2018, on the National Day, my team and I went back to see her. I know that the village was transforming the street, and she sold the old house for RMB 80,000 yuan to rebuild a new house. The first daughter, Chang Jing, was married to a local villager, a very handsome person, and they were producing 2 babies. When they built up the 3rd house, the husband was hurt, and now in the 3rd house, the family was running a small shop, a store. The husband of the first daughter was a good worker for decoration. For some of the houses who are waiting to be removed and relocated, were waiting to be decorated. So the young husband could earn 14,000 to 15,000 RMB per year due to the efforts of decoration. And Qing, the old mother, was good at cooking as well. For each year, they are treating the locals to celebrate the weddings and funerals. They're also going to earn 7,000 to 8,000 per year. Those are the houses, and they're also getting a big basement. This is a house, a room for the Qing. The rest of them are for the couples. There are not enough people for them to accommodate the 3rd floor, so most of them are residing on the 2nd floor. From the Qing story, she has a strong belief of moving her family out of the poverty line, and she is still raising up the pigs. She is running the stores. Now she is continue to raise up the chicken. This has become a very phenomenal thing for the village, because most of the villagers were out to the cities to get some work. On the National Day, we stayed with them for 8 days. I saw on one of the days, they're making a special food, the glutinous rice cake for us. On the morning, they took up those model and sell all those glutinous rice cake along the downtown area for more than 160 yuan. She still got up at 5 a.m. to complete all those making of the glutinous rice cake and to earn some money along the downtown area. That was the DNA of Qin. For any opportunities of making small money, they will never let it go. Now Qin has a grandson and granddaughter. She knew that the two daughters were not being enrolled by the university, and the grandson and granddaughter should be enrolled by the university. She's like enduring. She's like a strong worker with an enduring spirit. It's like a small celebration event. Not really. It's in her house. There are good dishes. Yes, now the life is picking up for her. She was raising the pigs, the cows, the calves. Everything's getting better and better for her. And she's really a tolerant person. Her husband left her for more than 11 years, but when her husband was coming back, she was really tolerant. Quoted from Qin, "The kids forgave him, so I will never bear any hatred for her. She's a very tolerant person." Now we are coming to the end of the story for Miss Qin. Now let's go back to the contradictory photos back in 2001 in the beginning and a photo shown in 2018 of last year. That was a very obvious contraction. We are seeing the eye bag was almost gone, and the smile is giving us a full face of confidence. She holds up a lot of emotional gratitude to all the donors. Here comes the story of Qin, and we have another part for this art exhibition. Let's go on. We have more than 12 photos of other poor mothers. Some of them were shown by the smartphones, and we're going to show you more comparisons along the secondary floor. Another small detail for you. We almost done the stories at the first floor. Here comes the album for Professor Yu. It was a special album for the 20th anniversary of the Happiness Project. All those photos were followed and interviewed by you. If you have any interest, please join us and read it.